Hello everyone and welcome to a new sprint review from the Eclipse JKube team. Regarding Eclipse JKube, this sprint we released version 1.10 that includes the new remote development feature that we'll be seeing in today's demo. For the Fabricate Kubernetes client, we worked on its general maintenance and we'll be releasing a new minor version during next sprint. So in today's demo, I'm going to talk about the new JKube remote development feature, and basically this feature lets you run and debug applications locally, so in your local machine, while still being able to consume services that are only available in your cluster, and also while being able to expose your locally running application to the rest of services that are in the cluster. The main purpose of this feature is basically to shorten or to make the inner loop development cycles shorter by allowing you to live code your application while still being able to interact with other services in your cluster. And I think that this feature can be very suitable for when you are basically developing a component or a part of a very large distributed application, and this component relies or is coupled to other services, and you need to basically interact with them while developing your application. And in many cases, this would usually imply deploying locally many of these dependent services, which might not be possible because these services are really heavy and you cannot expose them locally, and otherwise you would need to expose them in your cluster, expose them to your network, which might also not be something that you want to do. So I think that this feature is really suitable for those kind of situations. For the demo, I'm going to implement a really simple application which basically prints a joke whenever you request to the exposed endpoint. And these jokes are basically retrieved from two services that are available in my cluster: the Chuck Norris service that will return a Chuck Norris code for each request, and a generic joke service that will return a random joke whenever you perform a request to that endpoint. So if we check my Red Hat Developer Sandbox cluster, I have these two services already here, but if you notice, they are not exposed to the internet. They are not available for me right now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is bootstrap a new Quarkus application. So I will go to code.quarkus.io, and I need the REST-easy reactive and the REST client components for my applications. So I can now generate it, download the zip, and now I just need to open it. No. Okay. So this is my application, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add the OpenShift Maven plugin and add the configuration. So remote development, and then remote services. These are the services that I'm going to rely on, the ones that are in my cluster and that I want to consume. So remote service, host name. The first service is the Chuck Norris service. So this one is this service, and it's exposed with Chuck Norris. The port is 8080, but I want to expose this port locally at a different location, so I will use 8081, and I'm going to do the same for the joke service, but I'm going to expose it on port 8082. So already I should be able to run the JKube goal for remote development. So we'll see remote dev. Let's see, something's not going well. Okay, so my remote development session has started, and if you can see, I already have a pod here that will be basically forwarding traffic to this from my local machine to the services or any service that's there. So if I now curl into any of these endpoints in my local machine, I should be able to access them. So yeah, the Chuck Norris service is available locally, and yeah, same for the other one. So now I can simply start coding or live coding my application. So Quarkus 17 Quarkus dev. Okay. So my application has started, and so far so nothing fancy. And what we want is to have an endpoint here that whenever we request, we will retrieve one of those jokes from my remote cluster. So I'm going to remove stuff from here. Yeah. Since I'm using the REST client, I'm going to generate 2 clients, one for each service. So Chuck Norris service interface. I already have the code here, so we need to this is one, and same for the other service. So jokes interface, and the code for this one is here. Okay, and I need to provide some properties for the services to work. So basically, so for the Chuck Norris service, when we are locally, we want to consume this URL. However, when we are in the cluster, we want to consume the cluster available URL, which matches with the service name. And same for the yoke service. So in localhost, it's 8082, and then in the cluster, it's 8080. So this matches my configuration for JKube. So the last thing I need to do is to create the endpoint. So for example, now if I update, hello from Prestige Reactive. However, what we want is to be able to consume these services. So let me inject just client. So first one, Chuck Norris service, and Chuck Norris service, random code. So let's see if this works. Yeah. So now we can retrieve quotes for Chuck Norris. Let's make it random now. So we will either return one from this or one from the other one. Joke service. Random joke. So basically, yeah, now we are getting either Chuck Norris or random jokes. So you can see how simple it was to actually live code my application while still being able to consume services from my cluster. Imagine that these services are, these are really simple, but they could be something really more heavy that I should be, or I could be able to deploy locally. This way, I'm actually able to live code the application. If there's time, I can show you too how we can now deploy this application to the cluster in production mode, and we should be able to access it. So the application has been applied, has now been deployed. Let's see if we can consume the joke endpoint. And yeah, it works. So As you can see, in just a matter of minutes, we were able to live code an application while still being able to consume those dependent services that were only available in the cluster. So I hope you enjoyed the demo. Thanks for watching.